in what we perceive of the world, how we understand the world. This is one of the events of the Parallel Arts Festival of this 14th World Congress, which brings to people an understanding of bioethics through the lens of film, through the lens of writing, performance, the visual arts. As a member of the Health and Humanities team in St. John's, I am acutely aware of the fact that in most of our medical schools, indeed all of them, we focus on bringing out technically competent medical people. But there is an increasing realization that what we need to work towards are people who are both technically competent and humane. If you look at all our case histories in medicine, it often starts off with this idea, a person so and so walked into the OPD. That's our gaze. But actually the person's gazes could be quite different from the time the patient sees the doctor. But before the patient actually sees the doctor, there are heaps of issues. We need to go beyond linear processing. And that's exactly what medical teaching teaches us all the time. There is a cause, there is an effect, there is a right, there is a wrong. But in life, few things are linearly processed.
I began to realize that I was sort of packaging something for the women. I was writing for the people who read Femina, for the women who read Eve's Weekly, that type of thing. So you are sort of more or less talking down to somebody. You're thinking that, okay, I know what these ladies like, they'd like a bit of romance here, they'd like this, that type of thing. So it was contrived writing. And I was not so happy with it, but I didn't know what to do and continue to write until I discovered that writing for children is very different. I just tried writing a few stories for children, and I straight away found that it's something you do truthfully, because you can't really fool children. You can't fool children like you can fool adults. It's different. They can see through it, I think. So I feel that is when I discovered my own voice, that I had my genuine voice, and that is what I needed to use, and not contrive and write for certain audience. And I think that was the time I really became sort of a writer, serious writer. I took my work seriously. I wrote for children for a number of years, and then I started writing adult fiction, which is what I primarily, in writing, that's what I primarily do. I also write non-fiction. I have a book coming out which will be about healthcare system in India, but seen through my own experience. I find that writing later on, when people, you have conferences like this and people ask you about writing, and that's when you begin to think, why do I write? And so I have no other thing to say, but this was my evolution. And I find that writing helps you to reach corners where you wouldn't look otherwise. Because you are entering other people's minds and you're trying to live their life. Like even my first novel, The Truth Almost About Bharat, where it was a 19-year-old boy, it was a male medical student. So I had to think for him, not with my mind, but a male sort of viewpoint, So that was really very, very interesting to do. And it was difficult, but at the same time, a very good exercise for me, and it did very well as a book. But I have also, because we say that, okay, we write because we want to discover what human thinking is all about, or how other people behave, why other people believe they do, and understand all this. But I do think that writing also does a lot for you as a doctor. This is something I discovered fairly late, but I do find that there is a lot of transformation in my own, the way I see patients. There's a huge transformation in the way I do it after I began to write. And it wasn't that I learned from, it wasn't something very direct. It wasn't planned, but it has, I think writing and reflecting, that's why, we've called this reflective narrative. That is, you reflect as you write. And narrative is something where you are trying to tell your story, whether it is a real one or an imagined one, fictionalized. You're doing it either through poetry, plays, essays, short stories, whatever method you use, you're narrating something, It's not just a jumble of beautiful words or any such thing. So I think this whole process of discovering other people and other people's minds improves your own sensitivity towards others. I feel it was like a gift for me as a doctor.
What got you into writing, and how do you sort of bring these two together? So, for instance, when I'm reading the book on the Kolar goldfields that you wrote, I'm actually very taken up by the way you build the characters and the life that you give to them. How do you do that while you also write journalistically, and it's driven by very hard facts?
So, my journey began long ago. In fact, last year I finished 50 years as a journalist. So I started writing as a journalist when I was about 19 or 20 years old. And I used to do freelance writing for various papers like Deccan Herald and all that, because I finished college. I didn't have a job as yet, and I was just trying to find my feet. Then I got a chance to go to Hindustan Times in Delhi, and I worked over there as an intern. And in a way, it was a very educative experience for me, because I was an informal intern. In those days, there was no formal thing like that, and I was not paid or anything. And there were no other women there. So all the reporters used to treat me like a kid. So what they would say is, you come with me and we'll write, you also write, and then we'll tell you where you went wrong. And my God, they would tell me everything which I wrote seemed to be wrong at the time. I think they were having fun at my expense. But anyway, I did write a few articles, and then I came here and I got a job with the Express. And then I've been writing ever since. Originally, I used to write, apart from the articles which I wrote for the Hindu, for instance, I had a column, a urban column called Trivandrum, because I was living in Trivandrum at that time. It was called Trivandrum in Focus, and that ran for about 12 years in the Hindu. And I had other, I used to write generally because as a young person I wanted exposure to every subject that was available. So even if, for instance, Yellow magazine like Blitz asked me, I would write an article for them. I would write for Filmfare, Femina, Illustrated Weekly, Deccan Herald, anything, all the papers, whoever wanted an article written. And for me, I was in a good place then, because Trivandrum, as an English language writing journalist, there were more opportunities for me. It was the capital of Kerala. In Kerala, there were a lot of political things happening. So I had also got to write on politics. I remember, for instance, and everything, it was not hard politics that I wrote about, but my own take on various things. And I would also write about, the matrilineal system, why it was no longer in existence. I would write about dowry debts, everything. Then I also at the same time used to write short stories. And the short stories would be really based on whatever I worked on as a journalist. So I remember writing a short story which was serialized actually, I think, in Eve's Weekly. And it was called Fishing Nets. And it was about young children from Kerala who were taken, women also, who were taken, offered jobs in Gujarat, and they were taken away there, and the problems that they had went through. And because I thought that, writing it as an article would jeopardize those women who had gone there. I made it into fictional narration, and that was well received actually. And therefore, I wrote a couple of stories which were serialized in Eve's Weekly and Femina. But that was not much because my focus was always on writing journalistic stories. One of the big breakthroughs for me in terms of me getting into the line of writing non-fiction books came when I moved from Trivandrum because my husband is a space scientist, so I had to follow him wherever he went. So he was posted as the director of Sriharikota. I went there, and my opportunities to write journalistic articles were very limited because there were a lot of restrictions. Sriharikota is a space station. There are a lot of restrictions about who can come in, who can go out, and what I can write and what I cannot write. So it became very difficult for me. So at that time, I used to be writing for the Week magazine, and the Week asked me if I would go and investigate female infanticide in a place called Uslampatti in Tamil Nadu. So I agreed and I went, and it was really quite a dangerous assignment because the girl children were being killed over there regularly, routinely in Uslampatti. Although some people had already written about it, the English press had not taken it up in a big way. And why we sent me there was, for the first time, one woman had been arrested after finding that she had killed her child and buried it in the backyard. So the people of Uslampatti were very up in arms. They said she had every right to kill her child if she wanted to because she was suffering, she was a daily wage laborer. So this seemed like a very shocking thing to me, and I went there. And I found it was a really difficult assignment because the whole area, the whole district, everybody was for killing female children because they said female children suffer on earth. They do not, the parents suffer, everybody suffers by giving birth to female children. They kept one child because that is Lakshmi who lights the lamp of the house, one girl. But the next, if it was a girl, would be killed. And they had very gruesome methods of killing also, which I don't know if you want me to say it, but it's in my book. And they would either strangle the child or feed it poison and then bury it, with the proper rituals. And so when I went there, nobody would even talk to me. Even the police were against me. Even the bureaucrats would not, the bureaucrat I could not access. But the local people would not talk to me. So I went through the Indian Council for Child Welfare. So those young women over there had been doing a lot of work. They used to go, if any woman they knew was pregnant and she already had one or two girl children, they would go and sit outside her house, make sure that she went to the hospital to deliver the baby, and try to see that the child is safely taken home. But even that didn't work because after 2 or 3 days, if they were left alone, they could still kill the child because as long as they felt that it was their right and it was the right thing to do, that's what they were doing. And it took me a lot of time to understand this because it is like, it goes against anything that I believed was correct or right, and I could not imagine how a woman who gave birth to a child could kill it. But after listening to these stories again and again and again, I could see another point of view which I did not know until then because I come from an urban, well-off, educated family, and I could not see what was the suffering that these women went through because they had to pay dowry, they were beaten, they were even killed if they kept their girl children. So this is the kind of thing that I understood. And I met a midwife over there. This is also interesting because a midwife normally helps to deliver babies. But this midwife openly told me that for delivering babies she was paid a fees, but for killing the baby, if it was a girl, she was paid a bigger fees.
The notion of, a sort of a two-dimensional narrative as opposed to something deeper. We are very often schooled, so that we write in a certain way. And that writing in a certain way is quite insipid and dry. It doesn't take us deep anyway. So could you share the experiences of what you've gone through as a writer?
I I think writing is serious business, but it's also something like any profession. It is it's worth it only if you enjoy it. I don't think doing it. I mean, we all have to write because we have to write. We have to write to communicate. But if we really want to do writing in any serious way that it touches other people, then you've got to do it seriously, and it is not easy work as far as I'm concerned, although I enjoy doing it, but even now after so much of writing, I don't find it simple or easy, and but the few lessons I have learned are that one, the word reflect is very important, that you learn how to reflect. And it is a habit you have to form if you want to write. And I was fortunate that I had this habit from a very young age. Being a sort of an introverted child, I tend to spend a lot of time with myself. And but I do think for writing, you need to, just be doing nothing and reflecting, or just doing nothing. Thoughts may come, and it is something that you have to do almost every day. You have to have some time in the day for reflection. If you don't give yourself that time and you're so busy that you move from one action to the other, I think writing becomes that much more jagged and difficult. James Joyce has famously said that the three essentials for good writing, for a writer, are silence, exile, and cunning. And I think that's very true. If you think of the three words and writers, you can't, like Gita had to write and move with her husband where he had to go and everything. I mean, you have to get that time for yourself, you've got to wrench it out sometimes. Even for me as a surgeon, it is not like you have all the time in the world to sit and write and dream about writing. You don't. But it makes you all the better at managing your time. You learn to do it. And writers have to learn to do a few of these things, the discipline of writing. But at the same time, in the technique of writing, I do feel my own sort of the way I'm attracted to writing. I like clear, direct, unadorned prose. That is what I like. And I think the content speaks and the style develops depending on the story, because each story demands a different style, and that comes. But I do think that if you stay true to your story or to your characters, then the writing happens.
What I really like both of you all to do now is to actually choose some passage of the writings that you all have done. I don't know. Would you be okay doing that, Kaveri? So maybe we can start with you, and you can do a reading from one of your books and just tell us briefly what that reading pertains to, and then we'll go on to you, Geeta.
This is from The Story That Must Not Be Told, and as I said, it's about an aging widower, but he befriends people in the locality next to him, a place called Sitara, the type of place that we refer to as a slum. And one of these boys happens to work for him, does his odd jobs, a boy called Velu, and his friend Tatka.
In this book, it's actually a murder mystery thriller in which a person is dead at the beginning of the book, and his daughter, he's an Anglo-Indian, his daughter has come down from Australia to investigate why he died, whether it was a murder, whether he committed suicide, or what was the problem. And the book jumps from the early 20th century, when the British were just establishing cola goldfields, to almost the present day when the mines were about to close down. So it's like in that way I try to give the history of cola goldfields through the eyes of people who live there. So here I'm talking about Robert and Jane. Robert is a white man who is an officer in the mines, and he was married to a white woman, but he had with him a young servant girl who was only 15 years old, whom he was keeping as his mistress because he didn't get along well with his wife.
Today, I'm very happy that we have a small collection of narratives which have been written by students and faculty as part of this program, and I would ask Kaveri and Geeta to just release this booklet. Thank you. Actually, it's thinner than that because there are 4 of them. Okay. All right. Writers here or to the speakers. We actually have, the writers here on stage as well as the writers in the audience. And there are a few more of them. Yeah.
My question to you is, ma'am, while you have been not a writer but a doctor initially and then started writing
No, we are mixing up. Dr. Kaveri is the doctor.
Dr. Kaveri.
And
Yeah.
Geeta is the journalist and writer.
So, I would like to know how these writings have helped you in your medical health profession. With regard to your sensitivity, you said a little bit. How much more has it helped you in your approach to the patients or to their relatives or in your life?
As you develop a habit of reflecting, I was saying that you need to keep some time every day, maybe half an hour or something, when you're on your own and you don't have to do anything else, you can just let your mind go free, and that really helps. And I found that as I built in that habit into my everyday routine, I could also make my thinking sort of more, calm down in my thinking while doing very aggressive work as a doctor. Being a doctor, I could sort of do two things at the same time. That I could do my surgery, but I could also be at the back of my mind reflecting. And I think that is to do with the writing part, but more importantly, as a doctor, I found that I was understanding patients better. I was listening better. And this was not intentional. It was not like, I get a story today, let me listen to this one. No, I don't mean it that way at all. I just began to realize, because writing, as most of you probably know or should know, is also about reading. You've got to read a lot to be a writer.
Okay, Dennis, I'm going to stop here, but I think if you want to ask your question as you come down later on, only because we've run out of time and we would want people to reach the plenaries on time. So I just want to thank Kaveri and Geeta for spending this afternoon with us. I want to thank all of you, and I want to thank the writers who wrote the reflective narratives, because I think writing reflective narratives for public consumption is not easy. You put yourself out there, you bare your soul a little bit, a lot of it sometimes. So thank you all for those who responded to the reflective writing program. And I want to thank Kulinda at the back, Kaveri, who helped the editing, and Manjulika, who's standing there, but without whom this program would never have happened, including the whole of the reflective. So thank you all of you.